Welcome to Common Grounds, recorded inside the roasting room at the Coffee Roaster in Lincoln, Nebraska. In each episode, we sit down with people from Lincoln and beyond so you can get to know the fascinating individuals who help shape our community. Grab a cup and join us. We're glad you're here. Right here in Lincoln, Nebraska, there's a high school in the middle of town that has the most diverse set of students, and also the International Baccalaureate program that we're going to talk about today. And it has, I think, one of the best principals, at least in Lincoln, if not Nebraska, maybe even the world, because I've been there and watched him. He took over from a guy that I still love, and did a phenomenal job. Mike Wortman spent, how many years was he at Lincoln High?
He was at Lincoln High 20 years.
20 years. And that's
fill.
a tough job to take over from a guy like Mike Wortman after 20 years. But anyway, so we have Mark Larson here, and I'm Randy Bretz. Always, you should hit me. Well. And this is Marilyn Moore, and Marilyn and I have with us Mark Larson. Mark is the principal of Lincoln High School.
Go Lynx.
And welcome, Mark, and we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
And we asked you to bring your favorite coffee cup.
Yeah.
So why don't we start by telling us, it says teammates on
Yes.
it.
So first of all, this is my favorite, partially because of practicality. So I drink way more coffee than I should. And so the lid keeps it hot enough that I don't chug too much of it. But the Teammates mug was a gift from the Teammates program, obviously an amazing community partner that Lincoln High has. We have over 100 Teammates matches in our building that account for over 10% of the total Teammates matches in our city.
I didn't realize that.
But they're just a great community partner. I think many of us in Lincoln and in Nebraska are familiar with the Teammates program and their mission, but just a great community organization. But it's a great conversation starter. It's a great reminder to me, not just about Teammates, but about the amazing community support that our city, different organizations in our city have. I know we're going to talk about Lincoln High a lot, and that's my favorite thing to talk about. But Lincoln High is able to do the work that it does because of great partners like Teammates. I think about the Malone Center. I think about the Bay. I think about the Lighthouse. And I think about Teammates and a ton of organizations that kind of help share the load to meet the needs of our kids and families. And so that is part of why that mug is special and a reminder to me about the great partnerships that we have in our city too.
I will say, Teammates, I had a teammate at Lincoln High, and that's where
I got to know
you. And I would sit in the lunchroom with him and watch Mike Wortman in that room. And it just, it gave me a love for Lincoln High School, but that gave me a chance to be in the school every week, having lunch with my teammate.
Mark, tell us about the Lynx.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the Lincoln High logo.
It's pretty unique.
It is very unique.
We are, at least according to our research, the only high school in the nation with the Lynx mascot. And it is the story goes that Lincoln High has been around since 1871. And the story goes that from 1871 to about the early 1920s, Lincoln High didn't have a mascot. It was just Lincoln High.
Because it was Lincoln High. It was the only high school that didn't need one.
Had Abraham Lincoln.
And so the story goes that the school had some sort of a essay competition to come up with a mascot because the kids thought that they needed one. And one young student, she had the idea that we should be the Lynx, and obviously it was a play on the city name Lincoln. But even back, what gives me chills to this day, like even back in the 1920s, she named each of the 4 links in our chain. And you go back and you look at yearbooks, and they were tradition, unity, diversity, and excellence. And so those are our 4 links, and those are our core values that we still talk to our kids and our staff and our community about today. And so our mascot is really unique, but it means a lot, and I think is part of the story of what Lincoln High is about. So
the sculpture in front of the building is very attractive, and there's so many photos of kids draped over those links in different ways. It just shows up again and again and again.
And even that sculpture, I think it's the class of 1970 that came together to purchase that sculpture as just kind of a way to memorialize that, and it's something that you drive by and it's impossible not to see it and recognize it, and so I think even that part of the story that a graduating class was like, yep, that's going to be our our gift, I think is pretty cool. So
one of the interesting things that I've observed about Lincoln High, first of all, it's in the core of the city.
Yeah.
And so there are some folks that live in that area, the immigration, a lot of immigrants, a lot of people that are a little less fortunate financially. But you have that IB program, the International Baccalaureate, which brings kids in from all over the city.
Yeah.
Talk about how that impacts the school.
Yeah. Lincoln High is a really special place. It's a really unique place. You talked about our diversity, and I think that's probably the first thing that people think about when they think about what Lincoln High is, what we're about. And it's true. We have students from over 50 different birth countries, students who speak over 30 different first languages that go to school at Lincoln High, and that's part of what makes our school what it is. I tell families of incoming 9th graders or kids who are deciding where they're going to go to high school, you can't make a bad decision about where you go to high school. We have 8 great public high schools. But what I think makes LPS a little bit unique is they have a standard that every school meets, but every school is still kind of allowed to be like its own entity and have its own culture and vibe and feel. And so what I tell families is you can take pretty much, we'll talk about the IB program in a second, but you can take pretty much the same classes at Lincoln High as you would at any school across the city. A lot of the curriculum is the same. But what's different is the context in which you're learning that curriculum.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And so, like, for example, like learning U.S. history, sitting next to or across from a student who is from a completely different part of the world, the context in which you're learning that same information from the same textbook, I think has an opportunity to make that experience and that learning that much more rich. And so that's the part that I think makes Lincoln High unique. We're one of 3 high schools that has an English language learners program. We're the largest one in the district. We have almost 400 students that are served in our ELL program. And that's a huge and important part and a program that we are really proud of and something that we think makes our building better. But Randy, you talked about the IB program, and that was something that was started in 2009, was our first IB class. The International Baccalaureate program was actually a program that was started over in Europe partly by U.S. military families that were living over in Europe. And it's designed on purpose to be a program that is really rigorous. I call it AP classes kind of on steroids. Yeah. But it is also designed on purpose to be taught from not necessarily a United States like centric perspective. It's the curriculum is really rigorous, but it's also taught from a perspective of what things are all around the world. And what made it a really, I think, great fit for Lincoln High, because, the story of bringing the IB program to Lincoln High, we had a group of about 10 teachers that were really, really passionate and did a lot of research. John Heineman was kind of one of them that led that charge. But even when they got to the point of bringing that to the district and saying, hey, this is something we want to do, the district said, yeah, we think this is a really good idea, but we need to talk about whether we think Lincoln High is the right fit in the right place. And ultimately, that's the decision that they made. But I think it was made intentionally because of the context that Lincoln High has, and I think it's been a really good fit. But you talk about the IB program being something that attracts kids from all over the city. We have over 40% of our student population comes from outside of our attendance area, and the IB program is a big part of that.
Years ago, our middle son went to Lincoln High, and we lived in South Lincoln.
Yep.
But he went to Lincoln High because you had a computer program.
Okay. Yeah.
Back in those days. But, one thing that I didn't say in the introduction is how fun I think it appears that you have at your school. And not too long ago was prom time for the kids.
Yep.
And I saw you interviewing kids about the prom. And then just a couple of days ago, you had a microphone standing in the hallway, and kids were answering questions.
Yeah.
Talk about that kind of relationship that you've developed with kids. There was one girl you asked, how long did it take you to get dressed? And she said, well, it took me 3 hours to get my hair done. And
I was amazed.
But how does that help you with your relationship with the kids?
Yeah. You said it, that I still love what I do. I'm just finishing year 11 as principal. This was year 21 at Lincoln High, so as a teacher and a assistant principal prior to following Mike. But my favorite part of the job is still the relationships and connections that I have with kids. And so I'm nowhere near ready to be done being at a school, because I just they give me energy. They give me hope, and I learn a ton from being around them. And so, and I think relationships and connections is what drives me and what drives our work. I always tell our teachers that learning happens best in the context of relationships, and a big part of that is making our kids feel like they're seen, heard, and valued. And so the prom video and the video of our seniors at the end of the year in the hallway were just examples of an outflow of that, giving them an opportunity to have the spotlight a little bit. But I've got to give a shout out. Sydney Jensen is our teacher, who she does an amazing job with our social media. But part of that is that she loves Lincoln High and knows kids, but knows what Lincoln High is about, and is able to tell our story really well on social media too.
I went to high school in the late 50s and the early 60s. That was a long time ago. But my principal always had a suit on, even when he sat in his office.
Yep.
And I cannot imagine him doing what you've done. And I just admire you for that. It seemed like so much fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Mark, we're having this conversation on a Saturday after the last day of school and before your graduation ceremony tomorrow. Yeah. So that's kind of a high emotional time for not only for principals, but for teachers and for students and for anybody that's connected to a school.
Yeah.
Talk about those last few days of school and upcoming graduation from your perspective and from your experiences.
Yeah. I think the last couple weeks of school are at the same time my favorite, because they are, I think, really heightened in terms of reflection, and I think especially our seniors who are getting close to their time at Lincoln High ending, are at a place where they're able to think back and be thankful about their time at Lincoln High. It's always an opportunity for the adults in the building to, I think, look back and understand the impact that they have as well. But it's also a really hectic time. There's a ton of stuff going on. It feels like for the last month we've had a concert or a honors assembly or some sort of recognition event or some spring sporting event that is going on. And so it feels like the last month or so is really, really hectic. And then to throw in like just every year, the heightened sense of urgency about finishing a year and turning assignments in and testing and all of that. But all of that culminates in the graduation ceremony, which for us is tomorrow, which is my favorite day of the year. Just to see our kids dressed up and so excited and see their families so proud of them is a great celebration and a culmination of the best parts of our work. So,
do you have lots of graduation parties on your agenda this weekend?
So I've got to confess that like I don't go to probably as many graduation ceremonies as I should. I just would have a really hard time deciding which ones to go to and which not. But so my like kind of filter is, and this is happening more and more the longer I'm at Lincoln High, but if I've known the student outside of just being their principal, I usually try and make it. But I've got a daughter this year who's a sophomore, and so we've become friends with her friends and their families and stuff like that. We have I've now been at Lincoln High long enough that I have some of my former students and players who now have kids that are at Lincoln High, which makes me feel old. But so usually I try to go to ones that we have like a kind of a extra connection with, because I couldn't possibly make them all. But
how large is the graduating class this year?
This year we're just about 450. And so as the Standing Bear in Northwest has opened, our class sizes are getting under 500, and I think that's where they'll stay for a while, which is okay with me when I think back to about 6 years ago when we were at over 2,300 students.
Yes, it's a reason to build Standing Bear in Northwest.
And so we'll be at 450 tomorrow. So,
tell me what a good day is for you.
A good day,
other than a cup of coffee in your hand, but
yeah, that's a good question. I think the thing that I enjoy most about my job is to observe and see people grow. And so like when I think about even the last couple weeks, the best part has been being able to have conversations with mostly students, but a few teachers as well, that is, as we've reflected back on the school year, to think about where this senior is now on the precipice of graduating and going to college, and thinking back to where they were 4 years ago, and thinking about how much they've grown and developed, and knowing that we've been a small part of that is really cool. And then the same way with teachers, right? So thinking about and talking to teachers about how they have grown in their career and in their teaching practice and what they've learned. And so I think
faculty do you have?
Everybody included, so like custodians and cafeteria workers, probably over 200 or so. Yeah. We have 100 and I think we're at about 170 certified staff members. So
when I think about public education, I think about a school like Lincoln High School, because I think it embodies just about everything that is true about public education. It truly is for all of the children of all of the people. There's not a single requirement other than being high school age and in the door they come. And whatever they need, you figure it out and you help them grow during the 4 years that they're there.
Yeah.
It is publicly supported. They're rich partnerships, as you mentioned, with so many community groups, and all of the things that are true of students' lives outside of school are true inside of school too.
Yeah.
And they're great expectations and great pressures as a result of that. When you think about public education in the future, what does your mind's eye land on? What most needs attention? What most needs to be sustained?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind, you talked about the expectations of public school, and we are really lucky in Lincoln Public Schools, I think, to be, we have great resources, great community support. For the most part, our city has, I think, a really strong view and cares about public education in a way that is not the way it is everywhere around the country, and that's something that I'm aware of. I've got friends who are in my gigs other places, and it's not the way it is everywhere, and so we're really thankful about that. But I also think our country is at a place where public school is responsible for more than it ever has been. Even 20 years ago, when I started teaching, my job was to teach the kids that were in front of me English and how to read and how to write. And in the last 20 years, the job of the public school, and therefore the job of the teacher, has expanded to know each student that you're teaching, to understand what their needs are, and to do our best to meet those needs so that learning can happen. And I think that is that's really admirable work, but it's really hard work.
Yes.
And sometimes it's really heavy. And that's why I think understanding and being aware of the community support we have and great community organizations that step in the gap to be able to help support our kids. I think, one really practical example is the Food Bank of Lincoln. They do a food market once a month, the last Wednesday of every month at Lincoln High. And it is open to everybody. There's no requirement in terms of, are you on free and reduced lunch, or are you not? Everybody can go, and everybody takes a huge bag of food home. But seeing that and understanding and looking at the line of kids and knowing who those kids are and knowing some of their stories and understanding that that a community organization has just stepped in and said, hey, this is what we're doing. But when I think about public education in the future, like, the awareness of needs often happens at school.
That's where the kids are.
Because that's where the kids are. And in other places, there's not maybe the resources that we have here in Lincoln to be able to meet those needs. And so school often becomes the hub where that happens. And so I just think we just need to be really mindful of, we need to make sure that our resources and support match our expectations for what public schools are doing.
It's really well said. That's a nice formula.
Yeah.
Resources and support equal expectations.
Yeah.
They're equal too. You mentioned earlier students, and then you also mentioned players. Were you a coach?
Yeah.
Tell us about being a coach.
I don't know if you guys know Russ Ewing, but
yeah.
I coached under Russ Ewing, and he is probably, I worked under Mike Wortman, but Russ was probably really my leadership mentor. And so my Lincoln High story and my Lincoln story is actually connected to basketball and to coaching as well. I'm from Holdridge, Nebraska, about 2 hours west of here. I came to Lincoln to go to Westland, and after my freshman year decided I wasn't going to play basketball at Westland anymore, and thought about coaching basketball, but really didn't have any connections in town or whatever. And when you grow up in a small town, your vacation is going to the state basketball tournament.
Absolutely.
And so did that all through high school. That was coming to the big city, like what for the boys' state basketball tournament was.
Dusters play
We weren't good enough to make it.
You just got to go and watch. All right.
And so my freshman year at Westland, I actually met my dad down here, and we were going to watch. And what we did every year is we picked one Class A school, and we would just kind of like follow and go to all their games. Well, my dad student taught at Lincoln High, so he's like, we're going to follow all of Lincoln High's games. And this was 2003, where they ended up actually winning the state basketball tournament. I remember sitting there and watching one of their tournament games, and I was just from Holdridge, I was just in awe just of the crowd, the diversity, just the whole vibe of what Lincoln High was about. And I vividly remember turning to my dad and be like, I think I want to work there someday. And 2 weeks later, I had called my high school basketball coach, who at the time was friends with Russ, and they made a connection. And 2 weeks later, I was sitting in Russ's office, and I was 19 years old, and I was like, I think I want to help coaching basketball. He's like, I don't have a paid position, but you can show up and volunteer. And kind of the rest is history. So I've been at Lincoln High since I was 19 in some way, shape, or form.
Did you student teach there?
Yeah. The student teaching thing, I've kind of told my cooperating teacher. They didn't tell me my supervisor, who I was going to student teach with. That's how that worked. So.
And then you started teaching at Lincoln High when you graduated?
Yep.
And did you start coaching at that point?
Yes. So I was freshman coach at Lincoln High, JV coach under Russ, and really thought that was going to be like, I had no intentions of being a high school principal, but God had other plans, and different doors kept opening up, and couldn't have imagined doing anything different.
I didn't know the basketball connection. My father coached basketball in Indiana.
Okay, that's a big deal.
And when I was born, my mom said, I think it's time for you to go into administration. And it'll take me a minute to get to my question here, but Dad became a superintendent. So he dealt with the kinds of things like you're dealing with, but also he had kids going to school.
Yeah.
I've looked at your Facebook, and it's interesting because one day you'll post about the prom interviews, and the next day you got pictures of your kids, and then you got, something else about the school. Tell me how it is to be an administrator in a school, and at the same time have children that are going to school, and that pulls you a different direction.
Well, I will say it's getting easier because our oldest, like I said, is a sophomore, will be a junior next year at Lincoln High. Our middle one will be a freshman at Lincoln High next year. And so the amount of driving I'll have to do is decreasing by another third.
It is.
And so, and we live just 4 blocks from Lincoln High. That's kind of, we've always lived in pretty close proximity to there. And so like my work is, and my wife works at a nonprofit as well, but like it's all it all touches together. So who our friends are, who our kids' friends are, where I work, what we're about, what we do, our neighborhood, all of it is connected in some way. And so in that way, it doesn't feel like we're going in a ton of different directions, but it's made for really.
What do you do for time off?
That's a good question.
Well, at a high school, it doesn't stop at 3:00 when the bell rings.
No.
And it doesn't stop even at 10:00 at night if there is an issue and you get a call.
Yeah. I like to golf. And so in the summers, I usually try and get once a week the earliest tee time that Pioneers has, and can still get around in and still get into the office by 9:00 or 9:30 or so and still call it a day. I have recently last 6 months or so. My wife is like a competitive runner. I am not there yet, but I am started running just because it's the easiest way to exercise without a whole lot of thinking. I just put my shoes on and
That's right.
and
I mean,
go.
you don't have to do much
I make
preparation
enough
for it.
decisions throughout the day that and so those are some things that I enjoy doing that I think help me stay centered and relaxed. So other than chasing my kids around and being a dad.
You mentioned a middle child, so that must mean that there's a younger
There
one
is,
too.
yeah, the youngest one, he is a fourth grader at Rousseau, and will be a fifth grader next year. We just went with him this morning to the new skate park down in the Haymarket. That's like his thing is. So we spend a lot of time at the Bay and have recently spent a lot of time downtown at the new skate park. So he's loving that.
Very cool.
Now, you've been in Lincoln since college.
Yes.
I like to ask people, why do you like Lincoln?
I love Lincoln. I said earlier, I'm from a small town, and Holdridge is a great place to grow up. But what I love about Lincoln, what I didn't realize that was unique about Lincoln until I've gotten to be a little bit older, is that it's small enough to be known, but it's big enough to be who you are. Like when I was growing up in Holdridge, like what I loved about growing up in a small town is that I felt like I was known. But I also had this feeling that it wasn't big enough for me to really be who I wanted to be or do the things that maybe I wanted to do. And I feel like Lincoln is this perfect mix of small enough that there's connections that we have all around. There's great neighborhoods. I think about my kids are still able to run around and have similar experience that I had, like growing up in Holdridge, in terms of hanging out with friends outside and come in when the lights turn
dark,
off, and us feeling safe enough that like we don't have to worry about that, and feeling like we have great relationships with the parents and people in our neighborhood and community, but still big enough that that my son can go to a skate park this morning and have a blast, and that my wife and I can go to a concert and go to a great restaurant, and so I think it's really unique in that way. I also think Lincoln is unique in just kind of its layout. Like, it's not, we were just talking to a neighbor the other day who moved from California, and they're like, the neighborhoods here are not really isolated. They're like, it's so unique that you can, and
they meld into one another.
Yeah, we live in the near South, and so they actually were loving the fact that like our house is right across the street from an apartment building, and which allows us to live in community with people that like are still different than us, and that's like a really cool thing that I think not other cities like get to experience. So.
This has been an interesting conversation, and I always like to ask, too, is there anything that you wanted to talk about that Marilyn and Randy didn't ask? It could be a commercial about Lincoln High, or it
you
could
guys
be
ask great questions.
A promotion. I needed a good English teacher, or something like that.
I think we're okay for right now, but no, you guys ask great questions. I love talking about Lincoln High. It's a great place. I love what I do, but I appreciate you guys having me on, and appreciate all the work that you guys do for our city.
I want to thank you for. I didn't think Marilyn should have prompted me, Randy. This is the busiest weekend of his life. Let's have him come in June, maybe.
That's all right.
But thank you for coming in
between
the last day of school and graduation.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate
I just think
having
those
me.
graduation ceremonies are just wonderful times, and the person who's watching it has no idea of how many organizational questions and
yeah.
decisions you all have made about getting kids on the stage, across the stage with a diploma off the stand and back down to their seat and having it all run flawlessly. But it always
I don't know
works.
about flawlessly.
Well,
but.
it's darn close. It's darn close.
Yeah.
It is good.
Thank
I
you
hope
very
graduation goes well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All
Thanks
right.
for your leadership.
Thank you.
Makes a difference.
You've been listening to Common Grounds, conversations from the roasting room at the Coffee Roaster in Lincoln, Nebraska. These conversations are designed to help us better understand the people who share this place and the stories that shape it. If something you heard today stayed with you, we invite you to keep the conversation going. Share the episode. Sit down with someone and talk. Thanks for being part of Common Grounds. We'll see you next time.